am here.
Are you ready as well?
I am Reggie.
Alright, so we're gonna get started. So, Übel Blatt is it's a manga this time. It's not an anime. I don't think it has an anime. I would have seen it if it did. But there's this guy. Okay, well, I'll start how the manga starts off. So you start off with the person that I showed you with the black sword chainy thing. You start off with like a little explanation of the world. It's like a medieval kind of world with magic and stuff like that and fairies and whatnot. And then you see this guy and you see the black sword coming out of his arm and he's like slaughtering, I think like 100 people or something. And basically there are these 7 heroes of this kingdom that are leading a war against the like wizard. I don't want to say wizard, but like the warlock. A good thing is like a warlock type of like regime, I guess. And the warlock type regime had, 100 soldiers placed somewhere, and then this guy came up here and then slaughtered all of them. So the 7 heroes are looking for this. Well, not the 7 heroes themselves. They're obviously like generals and stuff like that. But like the lower ranking captains and whatnot are looking for this guy because they're like, we need him to aid in our fight. So this kid, his name is Köinzell, and he ends up being found by one of these captains, and they're like, we need your help. And he's like, nah, I have my own reasons. And damn, hold on, wait. Okay, something happened right before this. What happened right before this is that the captain of the army of the guys he slaughtered, so this one captain of the black warlock regime, he's like, he gets a report. He's like, what? My men were slaughtered? But in this panel, he's like fucking this one chick or whatever. He's like 8 feet tall, and he's like holding this chick in one hand at the same time. And so then they're like, excuse me, Captain. And he's like, what do you want? And he's like, well, our entire army was destroyed. He was like, what did you do with like the women and the money and the booze? And he's like, shouldn't you be? And the captain and the dude who's giving the report is like, shouldn't you be worried about our men? And then he punches him through the face. And then the other guy who's giving the report just stands there, and like he's looking all shook. And so he takes his fist out, like he punched all the way through his face is what I mean by that. So he's dead. And then he looks at the other guy and he's like, go find this kid. And he's like, okay. And then his hand's dripping with blood or whatever because he just punched through that guy's entire skull. And for some reason his horse is in the same room. And then his horse starts getting like all rowdy and stuff like that because it smells the blood. And I don't know if it was implied that the horse trampled the girl or did something else to the girl that was just laying there. But that happened. And so then that's when they find the kid because they're like, we need to find this guy with a scar over his left eye who slaughtered this entire regime. And then a whole bunch of searching.
All cool anime characters have a scar over their left eye.
Exactly.
Or an eye.
Yes, an eye. Yeah, exactly. So then a whole bunch of searching goes on, and the regime finds Köinzell, and they capture him because he's all like tired from the battle. And he's like, oh no, you got the wrong one, because he looks like a little kid. So they're like, yeah, this can't be him. So he's like, oh, we might as well kill him anyway. And Köinzell's like, what? So then he like runs and he jumps off a cliff into this river, and this girl finds him while she's bathing in the river because it's medieval times, so they don't have like showers and stuff. So she's bathing in the river and she sees him, and then she's like, oh my god. So she takes him to her house where she and her little brother live, and she's like I don't know if she's like royalty or what, but for some reason like all these people treat her like she is. And so she's healing up Köinzell, and her little brother comes back as he's like waking up, and she's bandaging him. The brother comes in, he's like, Köinzell, are you alright? He's like, yeah, I'm better. They don't know each other, but he knows his name now after they introduce. So he's like, Köinzell, are you okay? I brought you an apple. He's like, thanks. And then he was like, you ate oatmeal from my sister's bowl, right? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, in my town, if you eat oatmeal from a girl's bowl, you don't sleep with her.
Oh.
And you don't sleep with her, then you're a pussy, basically. And then the sister's like, shut up. And then the kid runs away. He's like, I'm going to go find our goats. And so then he finishes the apple, And then out of nowhere, he just starts like making love to this chick, and then the soldiers from the good army that were looking for him show up, and there's this kid who's the same age as, well, not the same age, but this teen who's the same age as the chick that Köinzell is making out with, like, and doing in public almost. And then he draws his sword and puts it to his throat because the kid has a crush on the chick. And then he's like, "What are you doing, subspecies?" Because he's like an elf and everybody else looks like normal humans. And then, so they start beefing. And, yeah, so that's when they're like, "We need your skills or something." And then Köinzell's like, "I have my own reasons for coming here." And so you find out that the 7 heroes are called the 7 holy they're the 7 holy lances. But you get a little bit of backstory that there are 14 lances, and they were given a mission by the emperor to, like, basically nip the warlock regime in the bud. But it didn't turn out that way because 4 of the lances, 3 of the lances died on the way, and then 4 of the lances betray the emperor, and they're called the Lances of Betrayal. And the guy who was fucking the chick who had the horse, who Köinzell killed before being all tired and whatnot, he was one of the Lances of Betrayal. And he for somehow knew Köinzell because he was like, he saw that he was getting sliced up by the black sword, and he was like, "Who are you?" And Köinzell's like, "Do you really not remember me?" And he's like getting turned, and he walks up, he's like, "Since you've survived this long, I'll tell you." And he whispers something in his ear, and then he starts begging for his life. He's like, "Wait, no, please, you have to understand." And then Köinzell's like, "Die," and he kills him. So fast forward to after he's doing this chick, and they starts beefing. They're like, "Yeah, we have this lead on this other Lance of Betrayal, so we're gonna go find her place." So they fly over to her place, and it's like this super pretty woman, but she's got like these electrical powers, and they're flying. The good guys in Köinzell are flying to her, and this is probably like the first part was probably out of order, but it doesn't matter. But they're flying to this chick's the second Lance of Betrayal's place, and what happens? They're just sort of scouting the area, and then you cut to this battle scene where this dude, like this frail dude. For some reason, there's a whole bunch of frail dudes. This frail dude named Atto is leading this army against the second Lance of Betrayal, the electric chick. And but his men keep like running away or getting killed. He's like, "No, this can't be." So then he gets up close and personal to the electric chick. He's trying to like slice her with his dope ass like sword that he swings around his wrist. And then she catches it, and she's like, "You'll never defeat me." And then this like basically what looks like a clone of Otto, except it has like stitches everywhere, comes out of nowhere, and Otto's like, "Brother!" And then his brother was captured and then brainwashed by the electric chick, so then there's that emotional thing that happens. And then she's like, "If you want your brother back, I'll make you a deal, ... So you're like, why do you see this battle scene? And you teleport back to the ship where Köinzell and the good guys are, and then you see the dude fly up on a dragon, and the good guys recognize his armor, and they're like, "Hey, like, we're friends with these people, like, the people of this armor," or whatever. And so then the dude takes out these 2 electrical explosion tags and then throws them at the ship. And they're like, why are they betraying us? Oh no. So then the dude gets onto the ship, pulls out his wrist sword again, and tries to slice, like the biggest dude he sees pretty much. But then the dude like grabs him by the throat, palms him in the chin, and then slams him on the ground. And you realize now that the kid who had the crush on the like royal girl, he just has like a security issue or whatever, because he's like, "Why aren't you killing him?" And he's like, "I don't like killing children." And then the young, like, that's what the big guy said. And then the young kid draws his sword. He's like, he calls Otto a subspecies too, and is about to kill him. And then Köinzell like wakes up out of nowhere and then blocks the sword. He's like, "You have a problem." And then they're about to beef again, and Otto's all tied up. And then Köinzell stabs his sword in the ground, which happens to untie Otto's binds, and then Otto runs. And then they're like, "What are you doing, Köinzell?" And then Otto's climbing up this ladder, and then Köinzell's behind him, and he's like, "Hey, where you going?" And he's like, "Ah!" He gets spooked, and he kicks him in the face, and he's like, "Wait!" And so he grabs up, and he accidentally pulls his shorts down, and then Otto's looking all embarrassed for obvious reasons, and then Köinzell was like, "Oh, I didn't know you were a girl. And it's like, dun 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 dun. And then she's explaining, like, oh yeah, I'm the princess, but I took on the role as captain so I could, free my people. And Köinzell's like, all right, cool. Give me all your clothes. Like, take all your clothes off. And she's like, what? So Köinzell puts on Otto's clothes because, they're both frail. And then they fly back. And the reason Otto went there in the first place was that it was her job to kill Köinzell because Köinzell was the dude who wiped out some of their army. So then the bad guys are like, oh, he's back already, huh? Did he really kill Köinzell or whatever? And then Köinzell's like, it's me, bitch, because they see his two braids, that like his signature two braids with kunai attached to them. And he's like, oh no, so he starts slaughtering everybody. Then he gets to the electric chick, and the electric chick's like, oh, you'll never defeat me. And then he like tries to hit her, but then she pulls out this like power move, and he gets knocked out. And he wakes up, and he's like tied up in this S&M, what is that? S&M? This bondage position type thing. And then he's got like all these leather straps on him that are like, keeping him bound. And then she's like, oh, I didn't know they would send, she was like, I didn't know that the guy who killed all my troops would be such a pretty boy or something. And then she starts like doing this weird hentai stuff to him. And then like she's getting like, yeah, to Köinzell, because that's who she captured, because he's like a pretty boy elf or whatever. And so then she's basically explaining that she looks so young. Oh, no. Okay, that's, yeah. She starts doing all this hentai stuff to him, and then she realizes that he's like a human merged with an elf clan. Like, a human merged with elf clan powers or whatever. She's like, how did you merge so perfectly? Like, I've been trying to do that, but it's not working with all my troops. And then that's when it has like a little picture of the Otto's brother that has all the stitches. That's like her imperfect mutation creation or whatever. And then she's basically explaining like, and then I'm gonna do all this stuff, and she's like saying all this or whatever while she's like raping Köinzell. And then Köinzell starts getting into it, and then he turns the tables on her and switches positions, and she's like, oh, you're getting into it, huh? And then his face goes all dark, and it shows that his handcuffs are undone, and she's like, ah! And then she gets spooked, and then she kicks him in the face. There's a lot of spooking and kicking in the face in the first chapter for some reason. And then she's like, why don't you just stay here and be a good boy or something? I didn't want to have to kill you. And then Köinzell slices her in the face, and she has a cut on her cheek. And then she gets pissed, and then she like bulks up and gets all this muscle everywhere. And it's really gross, and it's kind of nasty. And then she starts going on a rampage. But then Köinzell kills her. And then they find the third Lance of Betrayal, who is chilling with the fourth Lance of Betrayal. So the next two are like a 2-for-1. And then not much important happens other than the fact that between the electric chick and the two last Lances of Betrayal, Köinzell kills the mutation of Otto's brother, and then Otto gets pissed, and then she jumps down on the battlefield, and she's like, no, and then Köinzell's like, no, the ground's falling, don't go there, but she goes to her brother anyway. She's like, why did you kill him? And then like everything's falling, and then they like some rocks fall, and then it's like, oh no, the rocks fell on Otto, even though she was looking to be a cool character. So they move on to the last two Lances of Betrayal, who are, it's like a 2-for-1. Köinzell kills the first one, or the first one dies. I don't remember if Köinzell does it himself, but then the second one, or the last one, his name is Ashrit, and then Ashrit's fighting Köinzell, and it's like, you know who I am, I'm the Lance of Betrayal, and he's like, now I have to pull out my final attack, the Black Sword technique, and then this like weird little thing, like these claws come out of his arm, and you realize that it's the same type of magic as the other Lances of Betrayal, so it's like not legit. It's like clearly magic. And so then Köinzell kills him, and then he stabs him and all this type of stuff. And then he does the same thing like he did with the first guy. He's like, do you know who I am? And then Ashrit's like, how am I supposed to know you? I don't remember everybody that I cut down or whatever. He's like, how do you not know the person that you're supposed to be impersonating or whatever? And then it's like, and then Ashrit's like, what are you talking about? And then Köinzell says all this stuff that only Ashrit would know. And then he's like, this is the true Black Sword technique. And then he pulls out the black chain sword that you see in the first chapter from his arm. And then he stabs Ashrit, and Ashrit's like, why didn't you return to us sooner, Ashrit-sama? And then he dies. And then one of the good guys, he's like, he's behind Köinzell as he was giving that speech, and he's speechless because in that speech, Köinzell says that the 7 heroes, the 7 Lances of the Emperor, actually killed the 4 Lances of Betrayal because the first 3 died, and they're like, we have to stick together, no more of us can die. And the 4 are like, no, we have to complete the mission. So then the 4 Lances of Betrayal go out and they complete the mission by themselves, and when they come back, the 7 heroes ambush them so that they can take their glory, so that nobody will find out that they're being pussies and didn't want to go into the forest of death. And then the good guy's like, I can't believe this. And then Köinzell's like, will you stop me as I try to kill your lords or whatever? And he's like, I made a solid oath to protect my my emperor or the 7 heroes or whatever. So then they start beefing. And then Köinzell leaves after he beats him in the sword fight, but he doesn't kill him because, you know, they don't really hate each other, but they're just on opposing sides now. So then, fast forward, Köinzell is trying to get across this border by being smuggled, and he sees this chick get caught, like this little lolly girl gets caught, and he's like, Pee-Pee, what are you doing? Come on, oh, this is my little sister, come on. And then they're like, wait, stop, you're a smuggler too. And then this big older guy comes, he's like, oh, what are my children doing here? And then he like bribes the guard so that they leave or whatever. So then they're talking to this chick who runs a bar that's actually like a front for this smuggling place. And then they're like, yeah, we got to get across. And she's like, it's going to cost a lot of money. And then the guy who's faking being their dad was like, I don't got that much money. And she was like, fine, let me talk to Köinzell. So then she's like, Köinzell goes in there. He doesn't know that the boss is a woman, so she sees him. Obviously, she's scantily clad. And she's like, don't you know you're going to pay with your body so that you can get across? So for some reason, everybody just wants to fuck Köinzell. I don't know why. But then she's like, oh, wait, no.
Weird show.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, oh, wait, no, go slow. And Köinzell's like, are you a virgin or something? And then everybody busts in. They're like, we gotta go now. These people are attacking the bar. They know that it's a front. We gotta get out of here. So then a whole bunch of shit goes down, and then eventually Köinzell breaks the barrier, and he sees that he breaks the barrier that he had to smuggle across. He just breaks the entire wall because it's made of magic. And the thing that was powering it was actually one of the Lances of Betrayal. But it wasn't a real Lance of Betrayal because, you know, you find out that they were actually the good guys. So it was one of the people that completed the mission, basically. The mission was to put up that barrier. And the dude had to sacrifice himself to do it. And so Köinzell had to, he turned it to rock. He basically turned to stone to fuel it. And so then Köinzell had to destroy it after he had a little reminiscing session. And then the barrier went away. So then now there are all these refugees rushing across. And so yeah, and then everything seems to be all well and good. And then this dragon flies out of nowhere. Well, no, after they do that, they get separated. So like the dad, the lolly girl, and the smuggler, like the smuggler woman, they get separated from Köinzell. So they take a ship and they fly across. And they're like, we'll meet up with Köinzell later. And so then they're flying and they see Köinzell walking on the ground. They're like, oh, there he is. Let's go get him. But then he gets swooped up by this dragon. And then you're like, oh my God, what's happening? And you see that Otto is piloting the dragon. And then and then they shoot the dragon down after they ram it with the ship. And then Otto's like, I'm going to kill you, Köinzell. And then they're like, wait a minute. Oh no, the dad is standing there. And the dad's like, wait a minute. He's not actually a dad. He's like maybe 20, 30 or something like that. He looks kind of cool. The dad's like, wait a minute, princess. And then Otto's like, what? And she turns around. And she's like, Vid, what are you doing here? And then he's like, what are you doing here, princess? And then she's like, Köinzell killed my brother. And then Vid's like, no way. So then there's this type of tension too. And this is all of that was pretty much the intro. So now everybody's come to terms with each other. And Köinzell has to there's a whole bunch of sword fighting that goes on. And a whole bunch of other minor characters come in. But then Otto dies. And then Köinzell uses some of his power to turn her into the same thing that he is. So then now she's like a human elf merge or whatever. And that's really where the story begins. I forgot.
You said that they did the same thing to him. Didn't you?
No, but the reason he looks like the picture I sent you before, the reason he looks like that and doesn't have his black hair and all that is because when they betrayed him, they threw him off a mountain after they sliced him up, and then he ate this fairy. He was going crazy, and then he was eating this fairy, and then he merged with it perfectly, and that's the reason he has the fairy powers. And then he just gave some of his fairy powers to the girl when she died, so forgot to add that part in. That's why nobody knows it's him, basically. And yeah, Köinzell looks like Link. So it's basically like a rated R Legend of Zelda type shit going on, and that's why it's my favorite. And that's a summary of the intro, even though that wasn't really a summary of the entire thing, but that took like 20 fucking minutes. It's like my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah. I like it.